In this episode, we're going to take a common frustration in organizations and turn it into a skill you can recognize and apply. People invest in technology, teams work hard, but leaders still feel unsure whether IT is truly delivering value or simply staying busy. That uncertainty is not always because IT is failing, because many teams deliver real improvements that are hard to see in executive language. The deeper problem is that without a performance management approach designed for governance, technology outcomes blend into daily noise, and accountability becomes vague because nobody can point to consistent evidence. Performance management is not about punishing teams or flooding leaders with charts, because those approaches often create defensive behavior and distraction. The real goal is to build a system that proves value delivery in a way leaders understand, while also proving accountability in a way teams can act on. So decisions about investment, risk, and priorities are grounded in visible results rather than assumptions. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A performance management system starts with a clear idea of what performance means, because performance is not just speed and it is not just uptime. For governance, performance means the organization can deliver what it promised within acceptable risk at a cost and pace that supports enterprise priorities. Beginners often assume performance is a technical measurement problem, like tracking server health, but governance performance is broader because it ties technology activity to enterprise outcomes. For example, a platform upgrade might be valuable because it reduces outages, but it might also be valuable because it improves recovery speed and reduces security exposure by keeping systems supportable. If performance management ignores those outcomes and only counts effort, leaders are left guessing and teams are left feeling misunderstood. A strong approach defines performance as a set of outcome commitments, such as reliable services, safe change, trustworthy data, controlled spending, and timely delivery of prioritized initiatives. When performance is defined this way, the organization can prove value and accountability without needing leaders to understand every technical detail. To prove value delivery, the organization must translate IT work into outcomes that map to what the enterprise cares about, because value is not a universal term. A retail company may view value as faster customer checkout and fewer payment failures, while a healthcare organization may view value as stronger privacy controls and stable clinical operations. The same technical improvement can be described in ways that either resonate or confuse, so performance management must create a shared translation layer. This is where governance thinking matters, because governance of enterprise IT, CGEIT, aligns technology decisions to enterprise priorities, and performance management is the evidence that alignment is working. Beginners sometimes think value is only financial, but value can also be risk reduction, resilience, customer trust, and operational efficiency, all of which affect enterprise performance. The key is to select value statements that are specific enough to be measured and explained, while still being understandable to leaders who are not technical. When value is translated well, performance conversations shift from opinion to evidence. Accountability becomes real when the organization makes responsibilities and expectations visible, because otherwise performance results cannot be attributed or improved. Many enterprises struggle because responsibility is spread across teams, vendors, and shared platforms, and when something goes wrong, everyone can point to someone else. A performance management approach should clarify what outcomes each group is accountable for, including shared outcomes where coordination is required. Beginners often mistake accountability for blame, but in governance, accountability is a clarity tool that makes improvement possible. If a service is unreliable, it matters whether the root cause is unstable change practices, underfunded maintenance, unclear ownership, or gaps in vendor responsibilities. Performance management should therefore connect outcomes to owners and owners to decision rights, so that when performance drifts, the organization can respond quickly without endless debate. This does not mean every metric needs a single person, but it does mean that every important outcome has a named steward who can coordinate action. When accountability is clear, The enterprise can learn and adjust instead of repeating the same problems. A practical performance management approach relies on a small set of indicators that actually reflect outcomes, because too many measures create confusion and encourage teams to game the numbers. Beginners often assume more data is better, but when leaders see a wall of metrics, they stop trusting any of them because they cannot tell what matters. A useful set of indicators includes measures of delivery, measures of reliability, measures of risk control, and measures of cost discipline, because those are the dimensions leaders routinely trade off. For delivery, an indicator might reflect whether prioritized initiatives are delivered on time with expected scope and benefit. For reliability, an indicator might reflect availability and recovery behavior during incidents, not just whether incidents happened. For risk control, an indicator might reflect how well sensitive information is protected and how quickly high-risk weaknesses are addressed. For cost discipline, an indicator might reflect whether spending is predictable and whether resources are optimized rather than duplicated. When indicators are limited and meaningful, performance management becomes a decision tool rather than a reporting exercise. The concept of a key performance indicator, KPI, becomes valuable only when it is tied to a decision, because a KPI that never changes behavior is just decoration. A beginner-friendly way to understand this is that a KPI should help someone decide what to do next, not simply confirm what already happened. If leaders see that change failures are increasing, they can decide to slow deployment pace temporarily and invest in improving change discipline. If leaders see that recovery times are improving, they can decide to scale a service confidently because resilience is strengthening. Good KPI design includes defining what the indicator measures, why it matters, what good looks like, and what actions are expected when the indicator moves in a concerning direction. It also includes defining who owns the response, because without ownership, indicators become warnings that nobody is responsible for addressing. When KPI choices are linked to decisions, performance management proves value because it shows how outcomes are managed proactively rather than discovered after damage occurs. To prove IT value delivery, it is not enough to report outputs like completed projects, because outputs do not guarantee outcomes. A completed migration may still fail to deliver value if it causes instability, increases cost, or does not enable the business capabilities it promised. Performance management should therefore connect work to benefits and then track whether benefits are realized, which is sometimes called benefits realization. Beginners might think benefits are obvious, but benefits can be lost when adoption is weak, when processes are not updated, or when new capabilities are not integrated into daily operations. A good approach defines expected benefits in practical terms, such as fewer manual steps, fewer errors, improved decision speed, or reduced downtime impact, and then measures whether those improvements actually occur. This measurement does not need to be perfect to be useful. It needs to be consistent enough to reveal direction. When benefits are tracked, leaders can see whether investments are working, and teams can see whether their work is changing real outcomes. This turns value delivery into visible evidence rather than hopeful storytelling. Reliability performance is often where technology value becomes most visible, because downtime and instability affect almost every part of the enterprise. However, proving reliability value requires more than counting outages, because an organization can have fewer incidents yet still have poor resilience if recovery is slow and communication is weak. Performance management should therefore include measures that reflect how the enterprise behaves under stress, such as how quickly services recover and how well incidents are contained. Beginners sometimes assume reliability is a technical feature of systems, but reliability is also the result of disciplined operations, including monitoring, incident response coordination, and safe change practices. A performance management approach can demonstrate reliability value by showing trends over time, such as improved recovery behavior and fewer recurring incidents of the same type. It can also demonstrate accountability by showing whether root causes are addressed, not just whether incidents are closed. When reliability performance is measured in outcome terms, leaders can justify investments in foundational work because they can see how those investments reduce operational risk and protect enterprise confidence. Security and risk performance is another area where value delivery is often misunderstood because risk reduction can feel invisible when nothing bad happens. Beginners sometimes assume security value can only be proven after a breach is prevented, but governance needs ongoing evidence that controls are effective and improving. Performance management can show risk reduction through indicators like reduction in high-risk exposure, improved compliance with access reviews, and improved handling of sensitive information across its lifecycle. It can also show accountability by linking risk controls to owners who ensure controls are consistently executed rather than treated as optional. A mature approach avoids measuring security only as activity, like number of patches applied, and instead ties activity to risk outcomes, like reduced likelihood of compromise or reduced impact if compromise occurs. It also avoids fear-based reporting that overwhelms leaders, because fear reporting often leads to either panic or disengagement. When risk performance is visible and calm, leaders can make more rational decisions about investment and prioritization. That is how performance management proves that risk is being managed deliberately, not left to chance. Financial performance is also central because leaders need to know whether IT spending is predictable, optimized, and aligned to priorities. A performance management system should help leaders see not just total spend, but whether spend is producing outcomes and whether waste is being reduced through lifecycle discipline. Beginners often think financial performance means spending less, but in governance, it means spending with intent and avoiding surprise growth that comes from duplication, unmanaged renewals, and uncontrolled scaling. It also means being transparent about total cost of ownership, TCO, so leaders understand operating costs, renewal costs, and exit costs, not just acquisition costs. Financial performance should include accountability for cost drivers, such as whether teams are using resources efficiently and whether contracted services are delivering outcomes consistent with their cost. When financial indicators are linked to capability outcomes, leaders can see when higher spending is justified because it produces reliability or resilience improvements, and they can see when spending is simply accumulating without benefit. This is how performance management supports optimization without turning into a purely cost-cutting mindset. Performance management must also support delivery accountability, because many enterprises suffer from a pattern where work starts, but outcomes arrive late or inconsistently. Delivery performance should reflect not only whether projects finish, but whether they finish with the expected value, within risk tolerance, and with operational readiness. Beginners sometimes assume delivery is only a project management problem, but governance sees delivery as an enterprise coordination problem because delivery depends on capacity, dependencies, and change impact. A useful performance approach makes delivery commitments visible, tracks progress against those commitments, and reveals when priorities shift so leaders can understand the impact on timelines and benefits. It also includes measures of change success, because fast delivery that causes instability is not true value delivery. Accountability here includes clear ownership of initiative outcomes and clear escalation when dependencies are blocking progress. When delivery performance is managed this way, leaders gain confidence that the portfolio is being steered, not merely executed. That confidence is essential for governance because it allows leaders to commit resources with less fear that outcomes will drift into uncertainty. Another important aspect is designing performance management so it motivates the right behavior, because poorly chosen measures can unintentionally encourage harmful shortcuts. If teams are rewarded only for speed, they may skip testing and documentation, increasing incidents and future rework. If teams are rewarded only for stability, they may avoid change, causing stagnation and deferred risk as systems age. Performance management should therefore balance indicators so teams are encouraged to deliver value safely and sustainably. Beginners might not realize how quickly people adapt to what is measured, but in organizations, measures often become incentives, whether intended or not. A balanced system signals that the enterprise values reliable delivery, controlled risk, and predictable cost, not just one dimension. It also creates room for learning, because teams can improve across multiple dimensions without feeling punished for pursuing the wrong priority. Governance plays a critical role here by ensuring measures match enterprise priorities and risk tolerance, and by adjusting measures when the environment changes. When measures are balanced, performance management supports maturity rather than creating new problems. Performance management should also account for the reality that outcomes often depend on multiple teams and external providers, which means governance must handle shared accountability thoughtfully. If a service depends on an internal platform team and an external provider, performance measures should encourage coordination rather than finger-pointing. This requires clear definitions of responsibilities and clear escalation paths for cross-team issues. It can also require shared measures that reflect the combined outcome, such as end-to-end service reliability, rather than measures that isolate each group's part without acknowledging dependencies. Beginners often assume organizations operate in clean boxes, but real delivery is a network of dependencies, and governance performance management must reflect that network. Shared accountability does not mean no one is accountable. It means accountability includes the responsibility to coordinate and to resolve cross-boundary issues. When performance management reflects shared outcomes, teams are more likely to collaborate because they are measured against the same result. This improves speed and reliability because coordination becomes a normal part of delivery rather than a crisis response. In governance terms, this is how performance management reinforces enterprise alignment. To keep performance management credible, the organization must establish a regular cadence for reviewing performance, deciding actions, and tracking whether actions worked. Without cadence, metrics become reports that people glance at and forget, and improvement becomes inconsistent. Cadence should match the nature of the outcome, with faster review for high-risk areas and slower review for longer-term capability trends. But the key is that reviews produce decisions. Beginners might assume that reporting alone creates accountability, but accountability comes from decision-making and follow-through. A strong cadence includes reviewing trends, discussing root causes, deciding corrective actions, and assigning ownership with timelines. It also includes revisiting past actions to confirm whether they improved outcomes, because otherwise the organization repeats the same conversations without learning. This approach keeps value visible because improvements and setbacks are tracked over time, and it keeps risk visible because drift is detected early. When cadence is consistent, performance management becomes part of governance operations rather than an occasional presentation. As we close, building performance management that proves IT value delivery and accountability means creating a system that translates technology work into enterprise outcomes, measures those outcomes with a small set of meaningful indicators, and ties those indicators to clear ownership and action. Value is proven through benefits realization, reliable delivery, improved resilience, and visible risk reduction, not merely through activity counts or completed tasks. Accountability is proven when responsibilities are clear, shared dependencies are managed intentionally, and performance reviews produce decisions and follow through rather than endless discussion. A balanced approach avoids measures that encourage harmful shortcuts by reflecting the trade-offs leaders actually care about, such as speed with safety, cost with reliability, and innovation with control. For brand new learners, the main takeaway is that governance becomes real when it can show evidence, because evidence allows leaders to allocate resources confidently and allows teams to improve with clarity. When performance management is designed well, it becomes the proof that CGEIT is working, because it shows that technology investments are producing measurable outcomes and that accountability exists when outcomes drift.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.